All right, I recently got the Fortin Hydra MIDI Footswitch pedal, and I wasn't an expert at MIDI at all. I still am not, and I found that the learning curve is extremely difficult at first, and it's an incredible amount of work to figure out, for me anyway, to figure out how to get it to work in Reaper. Like you can see here, this is my Reaper setup, and to kind of what I was aiming to do was to kind of replace my pedal board, guitar pedal board, and replace it with a a virtual pedal board. So you can see here I have different amps and clean guitar and phaser, tremolo, delay, reverb, and you can add on as many different effects as you want, unlimited effects. And so to kind of replace my pedal board, physical pedal board, into a virtual digital one, and control it with MIDI. You can see the different things being controlled when I'm pushing the Hydra foot switch pedal. Which you can't see right now, but that's what it's doing. So I was trying to figure out how to get that to work, and I went on this long journey that I was like, why is this so difficult? And I feel obligated to share this video to help other people with either whether they have the Fortin Hydra or another one. There's a Black Star, there's Behringer, there's a whole bunch of different MIDI foot switch pedals that other guitarists might be trying to set up in Reaper and are probably as lost as me, because I didn't know much about MIDI. And so, yeah, I feel obligated to make this video to make it easier for you, because it was such an incredible amount of work, and I finally figured it out. And what really helped me was I posted on the GitHub forum after installing ReaLearn, which is a VST plugin you're going to need. And a guy answered all my questions on that forum, and he totally just made it so simple. Like, here, just do this and click here, and then install this and do this and this. And I was like, holy, like, what? How was I ever going to figure this out? There's no way I could ever figure this out on my own. So I'll put the link to that GitHub post below this video so you can see what he said. But I'm also going to walk you through setting up the MIDI foot switch pedal in Reaper from scratch. So and I'll put links to all the VST plugins you're going to need. There's not many, actually. But I'll put links to everything below the video that you're going to need to make it easier. All right, so let's get to it. So this is my current setup. We're going to start over from scratch and just open a new project. And the first thing you need to do is make sure you're getting a MIDI signal. So how do you do that? First, you go to Options, Preferences. You can just do Control-P. Preferences, this is in Reaper, and I'm already in MIDI devices because that's the last thing I was in, but you're going to look for MIDI devices, and then you're going to see your MIDI device here, and make sure it's enabled. So all I did was right-click and enable. So if you see that it's disabled, just enable it, and that's it. And you can apply and close that. Next is arm this track, and you're going to want to make sure the input is MIDI. And here's the MIDI 2.0 MIDI device that I'm using. That's the Fortin Hydra for me. It's just called MIDI 2.0. I just do all channels. It's on channel 1, but you can just do all channels because it doesn't really matter. And now if I press that foot switch, you can see this yellow light. That means MIDI signals coming in. There's a pretty good there's a thing called MIDI Ox, which is another software that I'll show you here quickly. So you have to close. You can't have both MIDI Reaper and MIDI Ox open at the same time. And what MIDI Ox is a way to check if MIDI is working on your computer. So if you're not getting any signal, if you do that, if you enable it and there's no signal, what you can do as a test is to check MIDI Ox, which I'll open here and show you. So this is MIDI Ox. It's free. If you just Google MIDI Ox, I'll put a link below the video for this too. But you can Google MIDI Ox and you can download it for free. And you just go Options, MIDI devices. You make sure these are activated. Okay. And then when you click your MIDI device, it's going to show you that MIDI signal is coming in. If you're getting no signal here, then that means you have a problem with your device. It's not sending any signal. You might have the in plug in the outlet, or the out outlet in the in outlet, or you have the MIDI plugs in the wrong outlet possibly. So check that stuff. So if it doesn't come into MIDI Ox, then you have a problem with MIDI coming into your computer. But you can see here that MIDI is coming in, and it says like what it's a program change, what button I'm pushing. There's some information there. Doesn't really matter. It's more of a check. So that's a useful thing. And again, you can't have them both open at you can't have both MIDI Ox and Reaper open at the same time. So close, if you're not getting the signal in Reaper, close it, check in MIDI Ox, and then if you are getting a signal in MIDI Ox, then you know there's a problem in Reaper with your setup. And then you can kind of troubleshoot from there. I don't really know if you're getting a signal in MIDI Ox and you're not getting a signal in Reaper. It's the only thing it can be is this MIDI devices thing is not enabled. I'm pretty sure that's all it can be. So just make sure that's done. And then, so here we have it armed. We're going to do the MIDI. MIDI is going to be controlling this track. Next, you need to add ReaLearn, which is an amazing MIDI tool that lets your MIDI device learn what you want it to control, and it makes it really easy. You have to install this plugin. So first, it's kind of that was kind of difficult to figure out. So you have to. I'm going to put a link below the description here, but you have to. If you Google ReaLearn, there's going to be. I'll show you here. So here I just Googled ReaLearn, and this is the site you're going to look for. It's a free download. And if you scroll down here, it says how to install it. You first have to install ReaPack in order to install ReaLearn. So you click on this, and then over here you download whatever version you need. So you can see I downloaded the ReaPack DLL file. I downloaded it from this page here. So again, this is ReaLearn. I Googled ReaLearn. It took me to this page, and then it says, to make it more confusing, it says you have to install ReaPack first. This kind of screwed me up. So you click on that. You download the DLL file, and I needed 64-bit, so that's what I downloaded. And then it's like, okay, what do I do with this? Because there's no really instruction. So I Googled how to install ReaPack, and it took me to this page. And then in here, it says, follow these steps to install ReaPack from Reaper options, show Reaper source resource path, and explore Finder. So in Reaper options, show Reaper resource path, and explore Finder. That takes me to here. And then next it says to put the downloaded file in the user plugins subdirectory. So user plugins. So you can see I already have it there. So you would drag and drop the file in here. Then it says restart Reaper and you're done. So that's how you install ReaPack. Great. But we need ReaLearn. So once ReaLearn is installed, once ReaPack is installed, then you follow these instructions. So install ReaPack if not already done so. That's what we just did by copying and pasting that DLL file in that folder. So then it says next, extensions, ReaPack, import repositories. This I was like, what does this mean? Until it took a while, but I realized that extensions was in Reaper. Like they could have made that a little more obvious. And so like in Reaper, click on extensions, ReaPack, import repositories, and then it opens up this, which you can't see. It opens up this window, and copy and paste the following repository URL. So you just copy this link. You're going to put it in here. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it. But and then you say OK. Then extensions. After you do that, you go back to Reaper, extensions, ReaPack, browse packages. Extensions, ReaPack, browse packages. It's going to open up this window. Search for ReaLearn. So ReaLearn. And I believe that's the one. Let's just double check. Right mouse click on the ReaLearn entry, install. I have it installed, so it says uninstall. And then you just say OK and restart Reaper. So I'm going to cancel. I've already done this, so that's the steps. But then once you restart Reaper, that's when you can install, then you'll be able to find ReaLearn in your VST plugins, right? So there it is. I've already added it. So the next step to get ReaLearn reading your MIDI device is the following, which is what the guy on GitHub said to do, and it was incredible advice. It would have taken me a million years to figure it out on my own. So this is the post that I put on GitHub, and I'll put the link to it below so you can see exactly. You can walk through it yourself at your own speed. But this is what I basically said. I recently picked up the Fortin Hydra MIDI Footswitch pedal, hoping to get Reaper to replace my guitar pedal board, which I explained earlier. When I use ReaLearn, the PC changed. I was just having problems. Like I couldn't figure out how to do this. It's like ReaLearn. Like here's ReaLearn. Like okay, what do I do? Right? Like I don't know what this means. I don't know. Like where do you start? Right? So to me, it was really difficult and confusing. So I explained my problems, and then I posted some screenshots of PC changes I was getting and my Reaper setup and what I was trying to get to do, and then here's what I was setting up in ReaLearn. And he responded. So it's important to understand that the value of a program change MIDI message is a program number, a value between 0 and 127, which if you're familiar with MIDI, that makes sense. It's a bit strange to use program change MIDI messages to switch on off things, but you can do it. Set source min and source max to the same program number, the specific program number that you want it to react to, and then set out of range behavior to ignore. I'm closing this, but you can comment if you have any questions. So then I did have questions, and so I said, I'm curious how you would set up the Hydra pedal to toggle on-off track effects, arm track, mute track, etc. in Reaper using ReaLearn. It sounds like there is a much simpler way to do this. Please let me know. I really appreciate this advice. I've been spending weeks trying to figure this out, which I have. That's why I'm making this video. I feel obligated to save you weeks of hassle and like pulling your hair out. So he responded, which is like, this is just gold, pure gold, because it just, here's what you do step by step. I don't know why this was not online anywhere that I could find that made it so simple. If this pedal sends program changes, then no, there's no simpler way to do it. So I don't know why he said this is a strange way to do it, but then he said that's the way to do it. At least not for the initial setup. But if you plan to use ReaLearn's learn target function a lot with your pedal, if you often want to change what the buttons should do, then I would recommend you create a controller preset that has a mapping for each button. Each mapping should have above settings for source min max and out of range behavior, which is what he set up here. And the target should be virtual buttons in different numbers. Then whatever you select the controller preset in ReaLearn, the Hydra buttons will appear in the main mappings really as buttons, and you will be able to learn them easily. So maybe this doesn't make a lot of sense to you if you're just getting started with MIDI, but if you dig into it a bit, this does. When I was reading this, I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get this now. So what he's saying is, first thing in ReaLearn is just kind of pull everything down and see what things are. So you can see right away that like, what's my control input? It's make sure this is set, right? Because it wasn't set to that. So make sure that's set. Kind of pull things down and just see what things are. Am I doing any output? No. So it doesn't really matter. That can be none. Main mappings, controller mappings. So that's the controller mappings he was talking about in the thing. So controller mappings, like, I was kind of like, I don't know what that means, but if you think about it, that's the mapping my Fortin Hydra controls. So mapping the buttons on the controller, right? So right now there's no, I made one now, but before that didn't exist. So what does that look like? What that looks like is this. So how did I build this? We'll just pretend I didn't do that yet, and we'll add a new mapping, okay? Next, you go here. This is, you can call this like button 1, or whatever you want to call it. You learn, so let's say button 1, as soon as you click learn, then you click on your MIDI controller, any button you want, whichever button it is. So you say this button, I just pushed the first button on the Hydra. It's a program change, it's on channel 1, so that's it. That signal came in. So again, you can see that the yellow thing is clicking, and I had a signal in MIDI Ox. So my MIDI device is working, it's setting signal, and ReaLearn is also reading it. Next, he said set, let's see here. set the source min and source max to the same program number that you want it to react to. So let's say I want this to be program change, well, 0. It's the first button, so I'll just call it 0, or just to make it easy, we'll just say 1. So you set them both to 1, then you say out of range behavior to ignore, which is what he said. Next, this is where, like, what do you want it to do? What did he say here? Create a controller preset, that's what we're doing right now. Each mapping should have the above settings, yep, and the target should be virtual buttons with different numbers. So the target, which is here, should be virtual buttons. So there, virtual buttons, like he said, and we'll call it 1. So this will be number 1, and because it's channel 1, and this is number 1, and this is button 1, right? So all that stuff is good. So there's the first button is set up. So now we can say, let's say we want, so you're going to do that for all the buttons on your MIDI controller. And then once that's done, then you can start telling your controller, like assigning your controller. So this button controls this button controls that, or this button controls this, this, and this, and this, and this. One button can do all kinds of things. This is the thing that I would have never figured out on my own. And now that I knew you had to do this, then the sky that was the limit. I was like, oh, okay, now it's really easy to get this MIDI device to control things in Reaper. So we have our first button set up, and you're probably going to want to set up all your buttons like I did here. Oh, I won't do that. I already have a preset called Hydra, so ReaLearn already knows it already recognizes all the buttons on the Hydra. It doesn't know what I want the buttons to do, but it recognizes the buttons on the Hydra pedal. So right now we only have one button set up. So if I were to push all the other buttons, ReaLearn wouldn't really know what to do. It wouldn't know what to do with them because they're not mapped. We're mapping the controller, like the guy on GitHub said. So to do button 2, you would just duplicate, edit, change this to 2. Sorry, channel, leave the channel. It's always on the pedal is on channel 1, so I just leave that on channel 1. Change this to 2, change this to 2, and everything else stays the same. And duplicate 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. Once that's done, you can then map. So you're done mapping the controller. So all 8 buttons are mapped. If you fill all this out, then you can go to the main mappings. You can start telling ReaLearn what you want the buttons to do. So mapping. So in other words, mapping the controller tells ReaLearn what buttons are on this device. So we told in this controller mapping, we told ReaLearn that this device has 8 buttons, and we mapped them. Well, we only mapped 3, but if you do all 8, then ReaLearn would know, okay, this device that's plugged in here has 8 buttons, and this is the signal from all 8 buttons. Then you do main mappings, which tells ReaLearn what each button should be doing. Once you have all the buttons set up and mapped as per the guy's instructions on GitHub, then you can go to main mappings and you can start telling Reaper which button you want to do what. So in other words, you just say add 1, and you go into edit, and when you click on learn, it's gonna instead of it seeing before it said program change, channel number, whatever it said, now because you set up the controller first, it's reading which button you're pushing, and you can even change that. So like Reaper doesn't care, and Fortin Hydra doesn't care which button you're pushing. If you want to call button 1 button 3, go ahead. Like they don't care. So we're gonna say the one I just pushed, we'll call it button 1. And then what do you want that button to do? You can do all kinds of things here. Let's say we want to mute that track. Track 1 we have set up. If we had multiple tracks, you could. What I like to do is by ID or name, so then it pulls down all your tracks. All your tracks automatically get populated. So, and whatever you call them, the names are there, so it's easy to find. So let's just say button or track 1, I want it to mute, and you change this down here, the mode to toggle. If you had like different device. This is just it's a foot switch, so it's a toggle on off, right? If you had like an expression pedal or a knob that you want to turn, then you incremental buttons or normal. Toggle buttons is what you're going to do for a foot switch. You say okay. Now, when I push that button, watch what happens. You see how it's muting? And then I can also say duplicate, and so everything the same, but I also want it to solo, right? So now when I push this, it mutes and solos. If you want them to be opposite, you just unclick it, and now they switch. So that MIDI signal will control that. If you want it also, if you want it to also disable the effects or enable the effects, now it'll do that too. And you can if they're not in sync, you can click them and then they switch automatically, right? So whatever combination you want. And that took me so long to learn, and the GitHub guy really helped me. Again, I'll put the link below this video. But then, of course, you can do like all the different tracks, and you can set up your MIDI settings and for each track. So now we're going to have, like, let's say we do this, and then you see how there's new tracks now. So you can set up your MIDI for all the different tracks, different effects you want to put on here. Whatever you want to do, it can all be controlled by MIDI, and it's amazing. It's pretty powerful once you learn how to do that, once you have it set up. And it took me so long to figure out how to set it up, and so many things that could have been easier, like installing ReaLearn, for example. Like these instructions could be way more expressive or easier to follow. Like how am I supposed to know this extensions? Like how am I supposed to know where this is? Maybe it's easy for you, but it wasn't easy for me. So hopefully that helps you install ReaLearn, get your foot switch working, and replace your guitar pedal board, and you just jam out in Reaper and control all your effects and tracks and everything in Reaper. So yeah, I hope I helped you save many weeks, or many hours at least. All right, enjoy.